happiness cannot be pursued directly. Actually, we experience less happiness when we chase happiness.
Are you frustrated with staying in your lane? With a structure that ignores what you're actually good at, your passions, your ideas, your potential? The world of work is changing, not tweaking, changing fundamentally. And the people building what comes next are already here. Network First Podcast goes inside the Network First Manifesto community. The change agents, builders, and project catalysts who are replacing hierarchy with human connection and making it work. This is where the future of work meets human connection. Welcome to Network First Podcast.
Welcome. I am joined by Sarah de Souza, and we're here to talk about the Network First Poetics Project. Before we dig into that, I've got one question for you, Sarah, and it's quite a big question, really. What is making you happy right now?
So many things. It's hard for me to begin to answer because I'm in a really good season of life in which many things are making me happy because I've designed my life in such a way that I am more engaged in, more frequently in contact with, have more time to do the things that have meaning for me. So I would almost tweak the question a little bit because I'm a psychologist and because I know that happiness cannot be pursued directly. Actually, we experience less happiness when we chase happiness. But what I chase in my life is meaning and purpose. And so the things that are bringing a lot of meaning to my life right now are, first and foremost, my family and having time and flexibility and being able to spend more time with the people that I love. And also my friends who are, I wake up many days and go, I don't know how I got this lucky, but I think I won the friend lottery. I just have the coolest, most interesting, wildly intelligent people in my life. And my work is something that brings deep meaning and purpose. I feel like I've come into a chapter of life where I really know what my zone of genius is, and I get to do work in that zone pretty much every day. And so all of those things make me think.
Right. So it's like a conscious creation process that you've gone through over the years to arrive in this spot. I mean, you live in Portugal, right? Which is unusual.
That's right.
I'm
an American who lives in Portugal.
Yeah. I mean, there are quite a lot these days, actually. But it's a
growing population.
You have a very, very interesting background, and I think it just adds so much value to the Network First manifesto and the community there. So, why did you join the Network First manifesto?
Yeah, it's I've been trying to remember how I found Network First because I know that it was through some sort of LinkedIn rabbit hole, right? I was exploring different decentralized communities, different ways of working. Really where it started is that I founded a coaching collective. I'm an executive coach, and I founded a coaching collective. And the first thought that I had is I've been a business administrator before. And I don't want to build a business that I have to manage and then manage other people. That's not what I want to do. I want to be a practitioner. But I don't want to be a solopreneur because I'd been that for years. That was getting lonely. Okay, so I'm feeling lonely and isolated, obviously also post-pandemic, remote work. This is such a common experience that, many people are feeling, whether they work in a larger organization or they work as solopreneurs, just the isolation of remote work. So of course, all of those things were kind of coalescing in my own professional life. And I go, I want to work with other people, but I don't want the thing that I have worked in before, that same organizational structure where I know that I was just talking a minute ago about my zone of genius. I don't want to build myself right out of my zone of genius into a different zone where I'm only proximate to the thing that I really love to do. but I have to spend most of my time doing business administration, right? So that was a problem. I was like, how do I solve that problem? I don't even know what the blueprint is for doing it differently, because everywhere I look, I see the same blueprint, the same founder blueprint, the same scale your company blueprint. So I was looking for different blueprints. And I found communities like Jumpsuit. I found communities like the Octopus Movement, where I started to see, oh, I'm not the only one who's thinking this way. This is like the zeitgeist. This is a thing that's in the air right now. And many other people are trying to build things in a different way. The word ecosystem, right, is a word that comes up a lot now. So somehow through that rabbit hole, somehow through that search of trying to find a blueprint like that, I clicked on something related to Network First and read this manifesto that ended with a paragraph about something called collaborative freedom. And collaborative freedom is the idea that people can do their best work when they're connected to purpose, surrounded by people who inspire them, and they can do their work from anywhere at any time. And it's so self-evident that it hardly needs to be explained. I think any human, given the choice between do work that's not really inspiring with people that you don't really feel inspired by, and do it at a time and in a place that's really inconvenient that you have to construct your whole life around, is not a better deal than collaborative freedom. Do work that you love, do it with people that really light you up, and be able to build your work around your life and not the other way around. So that is what hooked me when I read that. And the other thing that hooked me in was this idea that networks are the fundamental substrate or layer beneath org charts. And it's where the work actually happens, is through human relationships, not through the org chart's hierarchical structure, which is not to say that hierarchy isn't very helpful in terms of accelerating how work gets done in many cases. But this sense that human relationships are the layer that's underneath it really appealed to me. And I'm not an expert in organizational network analysis, which many people who founded Network First are, but it was just another self-evident truth that appealed to me. And it fit with how I wanted to build my coaching collective, that, yeah, I want it to be based on human relationships. I want the relationship to lead, not the product market fit. And it's not that we ignore product market fit. It's just that we start with human relationships. We start with people that light us up, that we want to be around, that I want to be having conversations with. And that's how I started building. Then I found Network First, and then it sucked me in.
Right. And it's a lot to do with the people in Network First, because they're all very futuristic. They're all very interested in this movement, right, of collaborative freedom. That was the hook that got me. I mean, I was recommended to join by a lady called Dawna Jones, who I know is also going to be interviewed soon. She has a project that she did, but you created the Network First Poetics Project, and initially I was like, what is this Poetics Project? I don't like poetry. I'm not sure I really want to get into that. And then actually I started liking poetry, which is quite weird. Not the fact that it's not actually about poetry, which is interesting, because poetics does not mean poetry, but to us non-educated or, non-poetic people, I don't know how you would describe us, it sort of switched me off in the beginning. But then I was like, do you know what? I'm going to just expand my mind and I'm going to enjoy it. And it's been really eye-opening. I mean, I haven't been to a lot of meetings recently, but when I've attended, you've always read something out that's extremely profound. And sometimes I have to go away and read it again in order to extract or 3 times even to extract the value, because a lot of these things are extremely deep, right? I mean, some of the things that, we sort of read, like the Tao Te Ching or the Bible or some of these, old texts, right, even, they have so much depth to what they're saying, and you've sort of broke it down really nicely, and it was, and it's been really, really useful. So what is it all about? And why did you sort of open that project up?
First and foremost, I am a poet, So that is what the initial seed of that project was born of, is that poetry is the thing that I've been doing my whole life. I mean, I've been memorizing poetry since before I learned to read and write. I literally could recite the poetry of Robert Duncan before I could write a sentence in English. And so it's something that has been part of my DNA. It's something that has shaped how I experience the world, how I engage with the world, but it's always been something that has been sort of sidelined from my professional life. And so the invitation of Network First was construct a project around, do work around the thing that you most love, the thing that you feel most called to do. And of course, as a coach, there's a deep calling, sense of purpose, vocation that I feel in helping other humans, and especially helping other humans around constructing lives of meaning and purpose. That's been one of my deepest callings my whole life. But that has found a place in the professional realm. I am an executive coach. I get to do that work. It's extremely fulfilling. The part that didn't fit was the poet. How do I bring the poet into the world of work in a way that I think the world of work desperately needs, which is more humanity, more dignity, and I would say spirit, something that is transcendent beyond just the extractive equation of selling our time and our genius, in service of a machine or somebody else's vision. Maybe it's a compelling vision that we also get caught up in. But most people out there, I think, are trading time with the people that they most love and what it is that they would most like to be doing with their lives for something that doesn't light them up, with people that, they don't necessarily enjoy being around, right? So, like, how do we bring something that's more deeply human, more, offers greater dignity to the space of work? So that was the calling. But then where it got really practical is that when I first entered the Network First community, I started seeing language that recalled to me old corporate lingo, right? And I thought to myself, if these people are really futurists and if they really want to construct a new paradigm, then there has to be some place in this community to think deeply about and reflect on the language that we're using to construct the world that we want to build together, because that is what language does. Builds worlds inside us and outside us. Like, it's the instrument with which we interact with each other is language. And so how that looked, right, in really practical terms, was phrases like all hands meeting, that was the trigger when I saw that there was a project proposal, in the Network First community to have an all hands meeting. I had like a visceral reaction. I was like, oh, all hands. I don't want to go to an all hands meeting. And in that same round of proposals in which the all hands meeting was proposed, I proposed poetics, which, to your point about it not actually being poetry, poetics is just paying attention to language. It's not, it doesn't have to be now poets pay attention to language, right? At a level that most people don't. But
well, I understood that after I'd actually researched it. Yeah. But it's interesting. You just said a huge amount there. And it just reminds me of what I read on LinkedIn earlier. To die, like, it was just like, and some of the people in Network First, like, they say they're retired, but they're not retired, right? They're actually really enjoying life. And it's just sort of such a similar enthusiasm that we have, I think, for moving people in the right direction so that they get to the place in life where they're really happy, right? And a lot of the Network First people, they are really futuristic and they love doing what they're doing. Like, everyone there really enjoys what they're doing, and we all enjoy speaking with each other, right? And that's just, it's just fascinating, isn't it? To meet a sort of, I'm not going to say a tribe, because I don't like the word tribe. It's not a cool word. It's an overused word, right? Maybe you like that word, but I don't. I think a group
not particularly.
of, like, what's that?
I said not particularly, but I think it's it's a community of something like it's more than like-minded. I think that's what I'm trying to when you say tribe, or I was thinking kindred spirits, right? But we're kindred, which,
Yeah.
really means family in some way. It's deeper than that we think about the same things, that we connect at, an intellectual level, but there's a feeling that we share, which I call, and I want to give credit to Charles Eisenstein is where this comes from, but the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, right? That's what it means to be a futurist, is to have a dream that a more beautiful world is possible. And beauty is an important word for me in that phrase. And this is poetics in action, because beauty is irrational, right? Beauty doesn't have to make sense, but it is maybe why we're here. It certainly is why I am here, I think, to pay attention to beauty, to invoke beauty, to cast spells with words that are beautiful. That's what I think my deepest vocation is. I think people that are called to, like our friend Deacon Larry, that are, called to pastoral work, people that are called to be poets, people that are called to even teaching. There are many other ways in which people feel that same calling. And that's a calling that I think we all share in Network First, and we recognize that calling in each other.
What are your hopes then for the Network First Poetics? Is it going to sort of evolve into something, or is it staying as it is, and then you're going to just close it off as a chapter in your life and everybody else's lives who were involved with it? Or is it, because I know it's very related to the codec which is being created, right? And the whole explanation of what Network First Manifesto is and
That's right.
all of that stuff. So where are you sort of hoping that it will go, or steering it?
Where it began, our initial, so I've been running it in multiple, what I've been calling phases. Phase 1 was to build out a foundational glossary of Network First terminology. So much of the language that we now use to take the case example of the all hands meeting became the Convergence because of the work of Poetics. And what was called Project Lead became Catalyst because of the work of Poetics. So we've I would argue we've completed a phase 1 of building out a foundational glossary that allows us to have shared language that is fresher, more alive, more representative of a network first way of thinking and being and working than the imported kind of hierarchy first corporate lingo that we had all defaulted to using for lack of having other words to use that we could all agree had shared meaning to them, right? So that was phase 1. And then we moved into a much more kind of intensive phase 2, where we actually constructed an operational framework based on some of the terminology that we were evolving that's called the 8 C's, which is now really the core framework of Network First. It's how we're implementing Network First in company pilot programs that have started in partnership with Cornell University, who are documenting those company pilots. It's how we're developing Network First consulting. And so I'm not, saying that Poetics owns or claims all of that work, but Poetics was deeply involved in developing the language of the framework itself. And now that has evolved into expanding that framework beyond just a project work cycle scale into 3 different scales. So there's the scale of the 8 C's that happens at the individual level, and that represents the transformation that an individual experiences by working in a network first way. Then there's the group or project scale, which is how a project moves from one individual's initial calling to crystallizing as something that is really part of the network architecture. And then there's the scale of the network itself that goes through this transformational cycle. One could call it a maturity model that begins with one person or a small group of people feeling a calling to build something in a new way, and eventually becomes something larger than itself, in the sense that it becomes an entire way of working, not just a community. So Network First is both a community of the people that have dreamed and then experimented with and then documented the Network First paradigm. We are the people who did it. And now Network First is also an idea. It has a life beyond that community. And so there's a way in which that cycle itself is also reflected in the 8C framework. So what we've been doing in Poetics is building all of that out and then documenting that in the codex. And where it goes from there, it's so fun and fulfilling just for me to be the catalyst for this container of deep investigation, interrogation, playfulness with language that I hope that it continues. And I certainly have seen evidence that others want it to continue, because it feels like the container that is the Poetics group is now part of the network architecture. It's the place where we all gather whenever we feel that we need a new word for something, or we notice that we're all using the same word and we go, we're not sure what that word means. And then we go, note for Poetics. And then that becomes the agenda for our
makes
Poetics.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, words shape our thinking, don't they? And they shape who we are, and they shape our environment and everything else. So it's definitely a necessary part of it. I mean, especially if there are lots and lots of new areas where it will expand into, right? And as it grows, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. So was there anything else that you'd like to sort of add about? Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about. I mean, look, right now, I know you do a lot of work in Silicon Valley. You know a lot about people losing their jobs, people getting jobs, because you work with a lot of CEOs. You also work with university graduates, and you help them to get jobs, et cetera, right? And a lot of other stuff. But with all these tech layoffs, right, that opens up a massive opportunity for people to actually join Network First, doesn't it? So that they can basically become part of project teams. They can launch their own projects. They can create businesses and spin-off businesses that come from the ether, right? And that for me is the way that Network First works outside of organizations, right? Because it's changing. Like everything is changing. And so I think it's great, because there's this model where you can put it in an organization, or you can create an organization using it. And that's, I think pretty much what I wanted to add, really. And did you have anything you'd like to say on that one?
Oh, I mean, I think that's great. Not because it's a follow-up to why it occurred to me. We don't just want the 8C framework to be a project work cycle. Actually, there's an experience that individuals have when they join Network First, that they are transformed by working within this community and working in this way. And again, how this looks just at a practical level is people find Network First through a lot of different cracks. I call them cracks in the system, right? Layoffs are a crack, and they're so it's such just a surreal experience, because what has been a stand-in for a proxy for the village or community for most of us in this, in the post-industrial world, has been work. Like, you plug into a big organization and you suddenly meet a bunch of people, and you got to meet them really fast and start working with them, urgently, and get to know them and get to know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and figure out all the office politics and who your allies are and all of that. You're doing all of that. And then you get laid off and you get an email at 4:00 in the morning, and it's just, don't come back tomorrow. And all of those human relationships, it's the organization that we've taken to be the standard for what an organization is and does, treats those human relationships as though they had no real importance, certainly not for the individual, right? So it's such a shock to the system. And I think one way that Network First offers just an incredibly compelling alternative is that in the Network First world, the relationships are the core of what we're doing. Everything is relationship first. Another way to say network first could be human connection first. If you think about how we all got to know each other, there's a non-commercial tone, which has certain constraints in that nobody joins Network First to promote their own business, right? I'm an executive coach. Let me recruit clients here. Instead, I introduce myself as Sarah the poet and linguophile, speaks a couple different languages and loves culture and loves human beings and is obsessed, had a lifelong love affair with human potential. Anybody want to come play with me in this sandbox called poetics? And after a while, I've gotten to know people in the community. Yeah, now I know what they do. Now I know what their background is and things like that. Isn't what we led with. And because of that, the relationships are stronger. I have a sense that if Network First ceased to exist tomorrow, I would still be friends with the people that I met through Network First.
Right.
And it's also more powerful because it's not just networking, which I think is an easy thing to get confused about if you're new to Network First.
I like you, I've attended a lot of networking events over the years, and frankly, I think that they're a waste of time. Most of them. So,
and also because no one sees you actually working. Like one of the
they're just looking at your badge, and then if someone else comes along that's got a more important badge, then they go and look at them, right?
No, it's an apt metaphor.
It's true, right? But
metaphor.
Literally, I want to thank you for spending time explaining what you've been doing here, why you're here, etc., etc. And if you're listening to this and you're like, "What is Network First Manifesto?" Check it out. Just go to networkfirstmanifesto.com and see what you think and sign up. It doesn't cost anything apart from your time and your email address and your name, and come and see what we're doing over there. And if you're a business and you want to get involved, then obviously join as well, and you can see what we're doing over there.
Well, thank you, Nat.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Network First Podcast. If this sparked something in you, you might already be a change agent. Find your people at the Network First Manifesto.